Thursday, May 20th, 2020. Yep. We're going to start recording.
This conference will now be recorded.
Okay. Thanks, Michael. Welcome to the 10th regular meeting of the Lynn School Committee, Thursday, May 28th, 2020. As a preliminary matter, we will confirm attendance. Nan, would you please confirm all the members and persons anticipated on the agenda are present?
Present.
And if you want, so I will go through the members and you can take their the roll call. Does that work?
Yes.
Member Castellanos?
Present.
Member Gately?
Present.
Member Capola?
Present.
Member Ford?
Present.
Member Nicholson?
Present.
Member Satterwhite?
Present.
And Mayor McGee is present.
Okay.
Dr. Tutwiler?
Present.
Deputy Powers?
Present.
Deputy Ruggiero?
Sorry, present.
Kevin McHugh?
Present.
Attorney Myhouse?
Present.
Committee Secretary Mary Jules?
Present.
This is Mayor Tom McGee, and I'd like to say good evening and thank you for joining us. This open meeting of the Lynn School Committee is being conducted remotely, consistent with Governor Baker's executive order of March 12th, 2020, due to the current state of emergency in the Commonwealth due to the outbreak of the COVID-19 virus. In order to mitigate the transmission of the COVID-19 virus, we have been advised and directed by the Commonwealth to suspend public gatherings, and as such, the governor's order suspends the requirement of the open meeting law to have all meetings in a publicly accessible physical location. Further, all members of the public bodies are allowed and encouraged to participate remotely. The order, which you can find post-agenda materials for this meeting on the city website, allows public bodies to meet entirely remotely, so long as reasonable public access is afforded so that the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by the law. This meeting will not feature public comment. For this meeting, the Lynn School Committee is convening by telephone conference via video conference via the GoToMeeting platform as posted on the city's website. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and the attendees are participating by video conference. Accordingly, please be aware that other people may be able to see you, and take care not to screen share your computer. Anything that you broadcast may be captured by the recording. Here's the meeting ground rules. We are now turning to the first item on the agenda. And before we do, I would like to cover some ground rules for effective and clear conduct of our business and to ensure accurate meeting minutes. As the chairman, I will introduce each speaker on the agenda. After they conclude their remarks, I will go down the line of members, inviting each by name to provide any comment, question, or motions. Please hold until your name is called. Please remember to mute your phone or computer when you are not speaking. Also remember to speak clearly and in a way that helps generate accurate minutes. For any response, please wait until the chair yields the floor to you and state your name before speaking. If members wish to engage in discussions with other members, please do so through the chair, taking care to identify yourselves. Finally, each vote taken at this meeting will be conducted by a roll call vote. And the first order of business is a salute to the flag. And I know there's a flag in the meeting room, as well as I have a flag behind me. So if I'd ask everyone to stand and join us in a salute to the flag of the United States of America. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And I'd like you to remain standing for a moment of silence, please. For Margaret McGovern, a retired paraprofessional passed away on May 12th of 2020. Michael Camo, former electrician, on May 13th of 2020. Jacqueline Lucia, retired head lunch aide, on May 18th, 2020. John J. Kelly, retired special education administrator, on May 21st of 2020. Moment of silence, please. Thank you. With that, we're ready to get into the agenda. And on the orders of business, Member Capola has on the agenda July hours. Member Capola?
Yes. With all that is going on and how the hours have been cut back basically for the students in the classrooms and everything's been done virtually and we haven't had the PIC Center open, I'm just wondering, how are we for planning for September? And, who is that going to involve during the summer hours? Starting in July, obviously. Will it start to include signing up of kids or any pupils for the PIC Center?
Superintendent Tutwiler, would you like to speak to that?
Absolutely. Sorry, once again, my camera started to work on one of my computers here, and then for some reason it doesn't. So hope you don't mind the voice only.
No.
So, I'll start with PIC. The Parent Information Center has, engaged a fairly traditional model for registering students for a long, long time. There has not been a virtual mechanism or an online platform for families to register. We are inches away from solidifying a deal with a purveyor to allow us to do that. In the short term, because that's going to take training, preparation, onboarding with staff, first and foremost. In the short term, with the governor's most recent release of information around the current phase, we do think that we're getting closer to a scenario where we can safely register families right here at 100 Bennett Street. That's going to require lots of planning, lots of preparation. I've already asked Joe Smart from ISD to come down and take a look. I know that they've done some work at City Hall, outfitting various offices where there's communication and collaboration with the community, with the plexiglass shields, kind of like what you see in grocery stores. I've asked him, he's already come down and taken a look at the Parent Information Center, HR, those offices in this building where that kind of interaction happens. But that's not a fast process, and we're just getting to a point in the city where some staff can return, office staff, and so, I wish that I could declare a date on which we would be able to, be fully functional in terms of registering families, but I really can't. And it's through no, there are pieces that are outside of our control. What I can say with a high degree of certainty is that we're working really hard to move toward a mechanism that allows us to register families virtually. That's not going to work for all families, as we know. But certainly it would help us with a lot of our kindergarten registrants who are, as you might imagine, and I've spoken to a couple of them, nervous and worried about next year. So that's the Parent Information Center. As it relates to the fall, in a message that I shared with the school committee, I want to say it was yesterday, it might have been the day before, The Department of Elementary and Secondary Education plans to release guidance for school districts around reopening in the fall in mid-June. We've already begun the work to sort of build a framework to be ready to move and plan quickly when that happens. But I don't think it would be a good idea to march ahead quickly and put things in place because it may not align with that guidance. We do have the Center for Disease Control guidance, which was released on May 19th, to bring to bear on our thinking. But as I've shared with the school committee, there are a number of states that have released guidance for their respective states. I've read the Iowa plan, Missouri, Maryland, Colorado's just came out. There are differences and intricacies in those plans, and they are, reflective of the culture and the setup in that state. Massachusetts is a local control state. There's not, the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education respects the differences between the districts and wants to provide some latitude in districts in their planning versus Missouri, where there's very little latitude. The state says this is what you're doing, and that's what they do. We've built a framework. We're adding pieces to it. We're nowhere near close to making a plan, and we're waiting on that guidance before we can begin to finalize things. And I should say also, any plan is going to involve feedback both from our staff and from families. I'd mentioned to the school committee that there's a survey ready to go. Actually just made a tweak to it this evening based on something that I saw in another state's survey about reopening. I'd say we have started, but we're nowhere near close to finalizing anything. We really need that guidance to take steps forward. So as that relates to the summer work, if I could just say so really quickly, I'm sorry. That means the summer's going to be busy. There's going to be not a lot of planning that needs to happen.
And I'll speak to what's going on in the city. I think it's a good question about as we try and navigate our way through this. We've got work groups we're a working group on how we start to open up what's going on in the city, the public operations side, and it would definitely apply to public coming into the administration building. So the first phase is beginning next week with department heads and Saul. But as I said today at a department head meeting, the number one priority is safety, recognizing this continues to evolve and that, as many of the science experts and health experts have said, we're only 3 or 4 months into what is really a worldwide issue that they're trying to get our hands around what it really means. So we are beginning with department heads, and we're being very cautious in terms of how we are going to be opening with employees coming back, and just as importantly, how we're going to keep the employees safe and the public safe as we start to slowly reopen. And the governor's guidance as of last week in terms of office openings, although it doesn't go to schools, and I know that they are working really closely to come up with guidelines for the schools statewide, is very limited in offices with specific regulations, guidelines, and protocols to meet. So we are working with both the CDC, DPH, and the administration's recommendations on how we move towards opening up the public buildings, which include from the city side access to the DPW, the library, which will be probably as complicated as the schools, and then the city building itself. And what we've been doing on the city side is pretty much running our operation remotely, and we're going to continue to explore the options to do as much remotely as possible to get the work done, recognizing not everyone has access to a remote operation. So how do we thread the needle between making sure we're safe, making sure that everyone has access to what's going on and to the services they need, and to the to our ability to move forward and make the operation happen in person as much as remotely. So. And I know that I've been on a couple of calls with a lot of mayors, and I'll be on a call with Secretary Riley later in the week with a number of mayors. as they develop their plans for what it means. And I've been on a call, and in terms of, and I'll just speak for what my concerns and questions are as we get guidance and recommendations from DESE and the state is, we have 17,000 students in very overcrowded buildings. In some ways, we are a handful of communities like Lynn that are really unique in what kind of a population we have, what kind of buildings we have, and the space needed to ensure the kind of operation that will make sure that everyone stays safe. So I brought that up with the governor directly on a call. And I know that Brockton and other communities are looking for the same kind of guidance because they're in a similar boat in terms of population. So it's all of those pieces are connected, I think, as we're trying to make the right decisions. But we need to ensure that, as Lynn is although we're in the top 5 in numbers, we actually, in terms of the latest information, we have the second highest positive rate out of any community in the Commonwealth of those tested. It's at 31% in terms of people testing positive for coronavirus in the city. So there's a whole lot of pieces that play into this. I think it's a great question, Member Capola, on how we're looking at this. But I think in terms of the process forward, it'll be a integrated and very collaborative process as we try and figure out in balancing what needs to be done to get the operation moving again as we want to, and ensuring that the students, the faculty, and the administrators, and those interacting with the public and the parents as well, are safe. So as we get more guidance, the first phase on the state side, our second phase for City Hall is a week from Monday. We'll be doing we're exploring, and I think we're looking at seriously a split between week to week in terms of employees. So we limit the amount of employees in the building, which is the recommendations from the administration. The recommendations on offices is 25% capacity in office space. So we are working within those guidelines to ensure that we open in a way that reflects the appropriate safety distances, obviously face coverings and safe distancing and kind of things that'll be important. So that may be a little more than you were looking for, Donna, but I think it's all connected in some ways on how we're navigating, I think, numerous ways for it.
Just that I want to make sure that I just want to make sure that we are ready, though. If we're moving the date back, to start school early or whatever. However, we're doing it because a lot of families were saying some of them have said that their kids haven't done anything in schoolwork. So, I'd like to see that we're really ready, whatever it takes in staffing to get us ready. So whatever the first day of school will be, we will have a majority of the kids started and ready to go. That's,
Yeah, if I could just speak to that really quickly.
Please, Dr. Tawala.
Thank you. I'm raising my hand, but you can't see me. I embrace that feedback, and I've heard it directly from some parents around the struggles to either get a student to do the work or struggles around, there's a willingness, but then actually tackling the exercises they're in. And that is helpful for us. And really, as we think about how we're going to engage students in their learning going forward, I would say, though, that is a two-sided coin. In my superintendent's report, or in my report around the work that's being done in this remote learning environment, I was going to share that we doubled the number of students who earned the seal of biliteracy, and significantly increased the number of students who earned it, the seal of biliteracy with distinction. So while there certainly are those challenges, and we are mindful of those, and that feedback really helps us understand how to better serve families, I'd also say that there are some students who are deeply engaged. In fact, some doing more with stronger outcomes than we had last year. So I just thought I'd mention that as well.
And just a small note to this, but I think it's somewhat relevant. I know that we're working on the Chromebooks, and I think the number that number is going to be continuing to rise, Dr. Tutwiler. But I just want to publicly thank the Attorney General's office, who had access to, I think it was 32 or 35 Chromebooks.
35.
35 that they actually were donated and then sent to the city. So although it's a small number, it's still a great ability to get some of that. So people are watching and trying to help out. So I just wanted to publicly thank the Attorney General and their office for helping coordinate that and making those available. As we also grow those, I think numbers at close to 14,000, Dr. Tutwiler, that we're working on.
That is also in my report. Yes, sir. We're getting there.
Okay, so sorry to jump ahead, but I just wanted to make sure that all the members knew that happened within the last week. Attorney General's office was able to get us at least 32 Chromebooks to add to the number, which is great news. Any other members want to make comments or speak to this? Seeing none. The next agenda item is the budget outlook. Dr. Tutwiler, do you want to?
Yes, please.
Take that.
Yes, please. Thank you. Just to a quick look back on the question and concern that member Coppola raised. It's well placed, and I think another really important variable around planning is budget. That is sort of the anchor of our plans for each ensuing year. We have our strategic plan, and there are professional development plans and staffing aspirations, related to that plan. Those are all driven by the budget, and that remains a thing that, among many, that is uncertain at this point. But I thought I would just ask Kevin to talk a little bit about what he knows about the timeline, just so folks are clear where we stand.
Great, thank you. Go ahead, Kevin.
All right, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Superintendent. Over the last couple of weeks, I have been on numerous calls. Actually, there was the superintendent, myself, the mayor, and the CFO for the city started a call a couple of weeks ago. And since then, I've probably been on about another 4 or 5 calls with various agencies through the state, as well as my organizations. And it seems that nobody has a real clear picture of what the Chapter 70 program is going to be for next year right now. And a lot of that is due, as even the Speaker of the House was very clear last week when he stated that due to the fact that the taxes were given a grace period to July 15th of this year, as well as the fourth quarter revenues, they're not looking very good, but they still want to see those to start making discussions and driving what the budget will be to next year. So he's not doing anything till he has that information, and then he's going to be meeting with the part of the governor and the leadership of the legislature to start having those discussions, which will most likely be taking place the end of July and into early August. So we will probably be looking at some type of information coming out during that time period. Yesterday, I was also on a call with the CFO for the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, and he was being questioned a lot about the same type of information, and he kind of reverted back to the same information that the speaker said, that he doesn't have any information other than that, and it appears that we'll all be working on a 1/12 budget for the months of July and August, which makes sense at this point. So he says until we all have better clarity as far as what's going on with the revenues and where that's going to drive the state budget overall, with the Chapter 70 being a piece of that, and very important to all of us, we won't have any information until probably sometime in early August. So I'm kind of agreeing with that. I mean, I've heard a lot of speculations, and I think nobody can back up any of those speculations, so I wouldn't give any other information other than, that's, I think, the great timeline. Once we get all that information, again, I know we'll have a follow-up meeting with the mayor, the CFO, the superintendent, and I to have our further discussions about where we see it, the Chapter 70 money, and how it's going to affect the city of Lynn. And then once we get that, we will bring that information to you, as well as prepare the budget and bring that forward to you. But I would say, best guess, we're probably looking at the earliest, the middle of August, to maybe even the end of August, before we'll probably be at that point, unless something drastically changes.
Thank you, Kevin. I'm happy to follow up a little bit on that. Kevin's a great presentation, Kevin. Kevin's right. It's been really tough to get any kind of indication of what the dollars will look like. And I've been on, as I said before, dozens of calls with all local leaders and A&F people, with the governor. We've actually been in contact with the legislative delegation, as well as Senate President and Speaker. The reality of the financial crunch that we're facing is clear, I think, across the board when they're looking to try and get a feel for what's happening over the next few months. So I think the numbers will be there isn't going to be an indication of what those numbers will be. A discussion with the Ways and Means chair end of last week with a number of us, and I know, Kevin, if it was it FY09 or FY10 that the city, when the consequences of the 08 fall, the recession that happened, was that reflective? And I know that pretty much the schools were held as much harmless as possible, but which year was it that was the year that we started to really see the hit on that? Was it FY10?
FY10 was the year that we saw the real impact of the last time that something, and I wouldn't even say similar, something close to this happened.
Right. Well, that's good. So in FY10, I mean, I was in the legislature, so the years, I know that we were trying to work our way through that. But what he said was FY10, we had I think between a $2.6 and a $2.8 billion deficit during that period of time. We're looking at a potentially between a $4 and $6 billion deficit in the current cycle. So, and it's also that the federal government will be doing, and I think that's part of what the legislature is waiting on to see if there'll be the House has passed a major several $1 trillion package that will fund cities and towns, counties, and states. The Senate has been reluctant, although I know Mitch McConnell spoke a day or two ago, said that the Senate would take up a new package by the end of June. But I think the reality for Lynn and every community in the state, as well as probably every locality around the country, is what the federal government will do to help us address what will be really substantial challenges in 2021. So there's no real indication of the numbers, but I think the reality of the deficit.
You just went on mute there.
Is more dire than what we saw in 2006, 2008, but there are a number of variables related to that, and I think the federal dollars are what the legislature is looking to, as well as the administration is looking to see what happens. And I know that the U.S. Conference of Mayors is advocating pretty strongly for a package that includes substantial dollars into supplement the lost revenue that I'd have to say every city and town around the country has faced. So good work, Kevin. I just want to lay out the scenario that we're looking at. And so as we try and figure out our own budget locally, without having really any kind of solid numbers on both Chapter 70 or unrestricted aid, it's a challenge. Thoughts or questions? Anybody want to speak? Member Nicholson?
Thank you. Thank you for that update, Mayor and Mr. McHugh and Dr. Toweiler. Totally understand the situation that the state is in anticipating tax revenue, and obviously we're eager to come up with a solution. I guess the first question would be, given the likelihood of the 1/12 budgets or those numbers we're starting to look at, I imagine that we won't be carrying the line items exactly as we had them to start the fiscal year, because we have needs in areas like technology access that we didn't when we wrote that budget, which is some of the fixes that we've made over the last few months since this started that I imagine would carry over. So the first question is what that 1/12 would look like. And then my second question is, given that we realize that the state is waiting to find out what is happening for its budget, and that we're all looking to the federal government, who has the ability to fund major investments through its ability to borrow, that's far beyond anything that could be comprehended at the state or local level. Do we see any value in, making some formal ask of our federal delegation just to communicate what our need is, what we're experiencing, to help them in their advocacy efforts? I know it's something that other districts have done now, something we've done in the past when we've wanted to communicate to our representatives to let people know in a formal way what's happening here, what our needs are, and what we're hoping from the federal government.
We could definitely entertain that. I would venture to say, I haven't talked to every one of the delegation, that they are strongly supportive of. I think all the House members voted for that funding, and we've talked directly with Senator Markey and Senator Warren. I know that they're absolutely strongly supportive of that. I know that Senator McConnell has voiced his opposition to funding this. My thoughts on this politically is, as this goes on, and you're seeing even the news today, Wisconsin, substantial spike in cases that are starting to impact other states that weren't impacted directly early on, as we were in New York and other states, that I really believe that politically the need, whether it be in Massachusetts or Nebraska or Texas or Oklahoma, that local communities are going to need to see these funds, and the states in particular, to fund education, public safety, the kind of things that we fund. Counties in other states are very big players in funding schools and funding public safety. We don't see that here in Massachusetts. So I think we could absolutely do that, but I know that we can just maybe send a letter of support for their continued efforts related to getting the funding the states and cities and towns lead. I think if we voiced it and in that way in supporting their efforts, because I know that they are to a person working strongly to do that. Senator Markey said to me, he was in Lynn about a week and a half ago, and he said this could be one of the toughest battles he's fought in his time in Congress in terms of getting these dollars. But it's a battle they're more than willing to take, and Senator Warren has voiced the same support, and I know she's really stepped it up in terms of being a larger national voice on the funding, but also on the healthcare and the COVID-19 issues. So maybe we it doesn't hurt to put maybe a motion together that we strongly support the efforts of our congressional delegation as they work towards federal legislation to fund cities and towns and states that have been substantially hard hit by the virus and the way the economy, with over 40 million unemployed right now. So I think that would be appropriate. Like I said, Member Satterwhite, please.
I think that it goes kind of hand in hand with the census. I think that we need to count every person so we can, because now we see how important every dollar is to our district. Like every penny matters. So we need to have a proper and accurate count to make sure that the federal government is allocating and sending money to us that is backed up by the number of people we have in our city. So the HEROES Act, what's happening on the federal level, and that's a substantial pool of money that comes to the city, but that might be a 1 or 2 time thing. We need to make sure that we're getting the adequate funding and representation year after year. So what Jared said is definitely right. And I just think that if we continue to push that with the fact that it's important to be counted and partake in the census, it would definitely help out.
I think it's a great point. If there's a willingness to put a motion together, it seems like there is. If someone wants to put a motion together and we can either discuss it more fully. Any members? Member Nicholson.
Yeah, I mean, we could do a high level one now. The other alternative is I'd be happy to take a stab at drafting something that's more specific to communicate some of the things that we are seeing on the ground. To the extent that would be helpful to be able to. Go ahead.
And I was going to say, if we want to do a motion saying we're working on a statement, we will sign together in support of the congressional delegation's efforts for funding. And then, unless other members want to work on it, I know Member Nicholson, you've offered. You can all share it with us, and then would that be appropriate, Attorney Myhouse?
It would be.
Okay. So I think the motion on the table would be that we are working on a statement that we'll sign in support of the congressional delegation's efforts to expand the funding for state dollars. We can incorporate into it how important the census is, but I think that's an ongoing effort. I think it's a great point. There is right now, I know right now there's I think 100 signs out in the city. It really is important for all of us. The timeline is through August now. Excuse me. So it really is important for us and everybody that's listening to be a part of that. I know if I would be willing to bet that we're over 100,000 if we counted every person. And I know just on the emergency management side, that means a substantial increase in emergency management dollars to the city to help us fund and continue to fund the kind of efforts we've seen as so important during this crisis. So I think we've got two issues here. That one, we can continue to push hard on the census together, and I think I'll take a motion on the floor to address what you talked to, and we can move that forward. So that if there's members Nicholson, you'd like to make the motion and.
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we draft a statement in support of our federal delegation's effort to procure funding to support the public schools navigate the COVID-19 crisis.
Okay. Second. Motion is there a second? We'll do a roll call.
Ms. Cassianis? Mr. Cassianis?
Yes.
Ms.
Yes.
Capola? Mr. Ford? Mr. Ford?
Yes.
Yes.
Ms. Gately?
Yes.
Mr. Nicholson?
Yes.
Satterwhite? Mr. Satterwhite?
Yes.
Mayor McGee?
Yes. If you want to continue the discussion on the census, I know we talked about it before, Member Satterwhite, or we can continue to push on that as together. If there's any other ideas, but like I said, we're working with Janet Rowe, the city clerk, is really taking it up. We got $50,000 from the Secretary of State to help us in those efforts. There are signs around the city right now, and we'll be putting more efforts and more ideas and reach out to the community to follow. The game plan originally was to do a really big door-to-door, and obviously that has been sidetracked in a big way with
Mayor?
Yes.
This is Dr. Weiler. I'm sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to add, I think it was our last meeting or maybe 2 meetings ago, we had talked a little bit about the census and our original plan, which was in-person lessons. The Census Bureau has a really rich bank of lessons, lesson activities, K to 12, and we had designated a specific period of time to engage in those lessons across the district so that we could ensure that every student will have heard something about that. We've now taken that virtual. That request has been made through the principals for teachers to. Those lessons on the Census Bureau website are not designed to be delivered virtually, but we're sort of redesigning them in ways that make sense to do remotely with students. And so that is happening. And in a quick conversation that I had with Representative Cahill in Lawrence, they did that and saw a jump in the number of folks participating. So I just wanted to underscore that is happening. And the conventional wisdom there is that there's deep trust typically between the community and their teachers, their schools. And so we're really trying to leverage that trust to get folks to participate.
That's a good effort. Thank you, Dr. Tutwiler. And I think it's important to note and publicly note, and you said it, Member Satterwhite, every person counted means something for this community, and that this is completely confidential, and there are federal laws that prohibit that anything beyond that confidentiality that people, as they fill out the census. I think that's important to continue to note because some people may be a little reluctant, but this is protected by federal law and completely confidential and cannot be shared except for the census purposes. So I just think it's important to continue to make that point. Member Capola? Member Capola? You're muted, Donna. Donna, you're muted. Yep, unmute.
Yes, Mayor.
What's that? I can
We
hear you.
had somebody who called me who has a partnership with muted.
Looks like there's a delay.
I show on mute.
You're unmuted, but you're
Okay.
breaking up a little bit, Donna.
Okay. I had somebody who called who is a partner of the Lynn Public Schools, and she speaks Spanish, and she's very like. Okay. Can you hear me now?
You're breaking up a
Can you
little, but
hear
we
me?
can hear you. We can hear you.
No?
Yes, yes. Yep, we can hear you.
Oh, okay. Where should people contact that have partnerships with the Lynn Public Schools, can speak Spanish and are willing to reach out to the Spanish community? Who should they contact?
Good question. Superintendent, you want to take that on? I mean, I know that Janet Rowe is coordinating from the top level, but do you want to take that on?
Yeah, I mean, she is kind of the mastermind of this. I mean, we're our target audience here is kids to get them comfortable talking to their parents about it, and that's a formula that worked really well in Lawrence. And we do have, and we have parent liaisons, we have paraprofessionals, and we've got other resources that we're bringing to bear to communicate where there's scenarios where English is not the first language in the home. But as it relates specifically to communicating around the census, I think a good place to start would be Janet. She may have a specific need that I'm not aware of, where that skill set would be helpful.
So that's a good question. So they can go directly to Janet Rowe.
That would be my recommendation.
Yeah, and if there's issues related to that, they can either reach out to my office or and we will connect them. Janet's been very good putting this together.
Mayor, if I may.
Yes, Dr. Tyler.
There was one question that Member Nicholson asked about the 1/12 budget. I didn't want that to get lost.
Thanks.
Okay, go ahead.
Kevin? Kevin, would you please?
Well, at this point, I don't have any definite guidance. That was discussed yesterday at the Department of Ed, but I think the logic would be that we might still just work off our existing budget, and that would be amended at a later date, because during the months of July and August, we don't really have a large amount of expenditures that we'd be doing right away. And I would only want to encourage essential purchase orders to go out, that we definitely need, because until we know definitely where next year's budget is, all those could be subject to either reduction or a reallocation at that point. So I understand your question about, we have reallocated some funds, but we would probably just want to start right where we were and just, actually go through every purchase order that's requested and really say, is it absolutely urgent at this point that we move forward? Because the rollover from the city doesn't even take place until usually the second week of July. So we're already into July at that point. So it would be safe to say, because from a salary standpoint, we only have so many 52-week employees, so we wouldn't be spending a lot of salaries either. It would be just a minimal amount for basically July and August. And then once we give you a budget, any adjustments on those munis lines could be made individually to reflect the actual vote of the school committee.
Thank you.
Other questions? Member Gately?
Kevin, I just would like to know, like, the opening of our schools and the distancing and the, supplies or desk or whatever we're going to need for the opening of school, that's going to cost us some money. I don't know if it's going to be similar to last year's budget. I'm a little confused with that. It's probably going to be more costly.
Well, some of that, as the superintendent said, that it would be we're working with the ISD as any other issues. I know they talked about they're getting some sanitizer and to have that available to all schools and things of that nature for those safety. I've been working already with Kathy McNulty directly, and we still have some additional funds in her budget, and we're trying to purchase anything we can now to get ready for that. But as far as day-to-day school supplies, they always do order some supplies, but they don't spend all their money. You know what I mean? When they start get their basic supplies to opening school as far as pens, pencils, and things of that nature. Those orders will always go through, but they always hold on to some of their money in their supply accounts till later in the year when the teachers come back and say, I want to do this or I need that. They would have purchased those maybe in October or something. So at that point, we would probably know definitely where we are and they could move forward with expenditures.
Okay, but I'm thinking about the opening of schools and the overcrowded conditions, like at English high school, at the high school, or the secondary schools, or even the elementary schools, and like they're talking about people in the community and in the state and across the country are talking about staggered starts, different time coming in. Are we ready for that, Kev?
Actually, I'm gonna steal that question from Kevin, and I know he appreciates it, so you're welcome. So that is a very astute question, Member Gately, and as you go, I spend a lot of time on calls with other superintendents, and different districts are thinking about how to approach next year in different ways based on their demographics, based on their, individual variables. With respect to the Lynn Public Schools, I mean, absolutely. I mean, someone's thinking about English High or Breed Middle School or even Marshall Middle School, Brickett Elementary School, Cobbett, Harrington. They're going to scratch their head and wonder, geez, I'm watching the news or reading the newspaper, and I hear the words social distancing said consistently. How would you do that in a scenario where you have enrollments like that which we have? These are things that we are already thinking about. And what I would say, it's way premature to say that, and here's our plan. We need to wait for the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education guidance. I'm sure that the governor's office will opine, Department of Public Health, and we will follow suit. What I would say is that I would be sitting in a place of having a very flexible mind around what school looks like next year. That's what I would say. And that's certainly the approach that we're taking. Our foremost priority, doesn't matter the scenario, whether it's global pandemic or, regular good times, is the health and safety of students. That is our number one priority. And so that is front of mind for us. And we are thinking about these things already.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
No problem.
Questions? Member Castellanos? And then Member Ford. Member Castellano?
Kevin, thank you so much. Everyone who's just kind of echo. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes. Yes.
I said thank you, Kevin, and Dr. Tutwiler, Ray, and everyone. I want to kind of echo. We need federal intervention. I know we really don't really have the state stance right now. There's a lot of questions of what budget's going to look like. But do we? I know we have priorities. Number one is safety. But are we developing a plan for the next priorities, the second, the third, and the fourth? Like, are we able to kind of discuss? I know technology equity. I know that technology looks like it's going to be very important next school year. I know we discussed the Chromebook availability, but internet. I know Comcast was something that we talked about previously, and I'm not sure what that looks like in terms of what negotiations, pricing. Could we kind of get an update on what that looks like right now?
Certainly, if I may, Mayor. Just quickly,
Yes,
as I've communicated before, I mean, there are really three pillars around which we build our plans and our thinkings and our work to serve students. The first pillar is to establish resources and develop protocols around the hierarchy of need: physical and mental health, food stability, and housing stability. That's first. Second is to build processes and protocols to establish the most optimal and flexible conditions for and approaches to learning and development for each student. And then third is around communication and making sure that we're collaborating with stakeholders and our families. I mean, that is a very simple, but I think robust and substantive foundation for making decisions about how we proceed. I mean, we now know that there probably won't, and this is not my area of expertise, but I'm just reflecting what's in the news and in the newspaper. There probably won't be a vaccine until, maybe the end of the year. And so we also know that social distancing is consistently what the medical community identifies as the only way to mitigate the spread, consistently mitigate the spread of COVID-19. We know these things. And so, our thinking is really anchored in how do we meet that first need around physical and mental health, housing stability, food security, and then how do we develop systems and structures where we can develop an optimal learning experience. I mean, we had to turn on a dime this year, and would I say it's optimal? No, but I'd say it's the best that we could do with what we had. And what we've been doing since the closure is making moves to get closer or to get all the way to optimal. And so that means purchasing 14,000 Chromebooks. That means purchasing enough laptops for every staff member to have one. That means assembling a team to investigate a robust learning management system for us so that if we have to close on a dime, the learning can continue. That means having systems in place with our social emotional learning staff, social workers, nurses, that would allow us to quickly either leverage our partnerships in the community or directly provide an intervention or support for a student. These are all the things, and listen, we are blessed that we have the team that we do, because the thinking that's happening around this is really, really sharp, and I think really going to serve us well. But there are 100 boxes that need to be checked, and each one of those boxes takes time to develop and think about and sweat the details. And so, again, we're not in a place, I don't think any district is, and I'm talking to superintendents daily, in a place where they can say, this is what we're going to do next year. I've not heard a district release their plan, but I can tell you the kinds of things that we're talking about and thinking about are the same things that our peer districts are thinking about, the same things that our neighboring districts are thinking about. And I'd say at this point, I'm comfortable with where we are with our thinking, given what we know.
Thank you, Patrick. It just, if just a question about I know this
About
is.
the internet? Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. No, that's. So again, we tried twice to survey the community, and it's actually in the next survey that's going out again to try to get a sense for how many families do not have access at home, and we're guessing at this point. But we're starting with Comcast with 500 at-home access points. The families would work directly with Comcast to retrieve the equipment. Comcast gives us a code. We give the families the code. We pay the bill. I think it is both a cost and process efficient. I feel like I wrote that to somebody today. Cost and process efficient approach. We'll start there. If we determine that the need is greater than that, then we'll increase it because this is a fairly affordable approach. So that's where we are with that. In my report, I'm going to talk a little bit about the framework for our summer learning. There's one piece that I'm really hopeful that I'll be able to share good news about in our next meeting that relates to technology and sort of math enrichment / intervention over the summer. But at this point we're starting with 500, and we'll go up from there as we determine the need.
Okay, are we looking to start that by the summertime? Like, what is that? Is that going to be up and going for?
Yeah.
Like, what's the time?
I'm probably not going to read my report when we're all done because I'm saying it all right now.
No,
it's all good. It's all good, Member Castellanos. No problem at all. I can reiterate. So absolutely, we've got summer. There's sort of two buckets of our approach for summer. The students with disability, the extended year programming will continue as it always has, and that will be remote. The English Learner Education Office is developing language acquisition activity packets that will be available for families to pick up when they grab their report cards at the end of the year. And then there's some additional online enrichment / intervention resources that we're planning to leverage that I'll speak more about in just a moment. But yes, that's starting this summer. And I know, some kids, my own kids talk about needing a break, and they certainly can do that. It's not our intention to do drill all summer long, but we're really thinking about ways to keep kids engaged and learning and figuring over the summer. We're also going to be purchasing summer reading for all students, hardcover books that we hope will be available. We're working with the vendors now when families pick up their report cards at the end of the year, and related reflection and writing activities that go with it, and an incentive to actually do it over the summer. So we are absolutely focused on summer learning. A piece of it does involve technology as we think about our students 3 to 12, and I'll talk about that in just a moment. But yes, this is a summer endeavor.
Thank you so much, Patrick.
No problem.
Thank you, Member Ford.
Yeah, quick question. This may fall into your report, Patrick. But is there any chance when you're dealing with DESE that we look at two sets of guidelines, one for urban and one for suburban? I know that we have the 10 urban districts that may want to be expanded a little bit, but the problems that we face are far more involved, I think, than the smaller communities face. And maybe two sets of guidelines would be easier to work with.
It's no secret that I'm on the Reopen Task Force, and I specifically asked if this was guidance or directives, because there is a difference. Guidance is like, hey, do this if you can, and if not, it's okay. Directives mean something different. And I didn't really get a clear answer on that. But what I can tell you is that much like, the guidance that was provided in the state of Maryland, they provided, I think it was like maybe 4 or 5 different ways for districts to orient themselves to meet what their local medical community is saying that would be best for their students. I have a sneaking suspicion, actually more than a sneaking suspicion, that there's going to be, a few models for districts to consider. There's no one size fits all. I mean, we've got urban, we've got rural, we've got regional schools, we've got, career tech ed schools. I mean, there's so many different orientations. DESE's not going to be able to address all the difference, the wide difference across the state of the schools and the districts, but I feel pretty certain that they're going to offer a few models for districts to consider getting settled in.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
Other questions? Okay. Next on the agenda, I think we probably have addressed it as much as possible, but general updates to the impact of the closure. I think we've kind of segued into that with a lot of these questions, but if anyone has any thoughts or questions related to that agenda item, I think we really addressed it. And Member Nicholson?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Member Nicholson.
I could let Dr. Weiler go if he had other updates he wanted to give first.
Okay.
Yeah, as I'm looking at this, and I should probably start polishing these and posting them again. But we really have touched upon everything that is in the document. The only thing that if I may, Mayor, that I wanted to share with the group again more formally is at the end of the document. If I may.
Yes, you can. Yes, please.
Okay. I personally place a high value on the notion of finishing strong. Doing so says something about character, about commitment. Yesterday evening, I had the pleasure of signing 140 certificates for seniors who earned the seal of biliteracy, 45 of whom earned the seal with distinction, which requires students to score the low advanced level in the target language and the exceeds threshold on the MCAS. Comparatively, last year, 79 LPS seniors earned the seal of biliteracy and 5 earned the seal of biliteracy with distinction. Lynn continues to be a leader statewide in this area. My hat is tipped to this group of students for their commitment and their stick-to-itness, grit, if you will. It will serve them well in the years to come. I just wanted to make sure that we were able to share that. I think that is a wonderful tribute to a group of students who stayed at it and finished strong.
Great. Thank you very much. Congratulations to all those students. It's impressive how they continue to grow and show leadership from Lynn to around the state. So thanks for sharing that. Any other input? Okay, next on the agenda is
I'm sorry.
yes. Yep. Member Nicholson, I'm sorry.
Thank you. So Dr. Tutwiler, you had mentioned that you were going to try another approach with the survey, and obviously super important to be able to get that kind of feedback from families and students and to make this communication 2 ways to understand how things are playing out for them. Could you just talk a little bit more about what the approach is now and appreciate your multiple efforts to make this work? I know there's a lot of barriers to try to create something like this that's effective and fair and provides the right level of access. So thank you for that. But could you talk a little bit more about the updated approach?
Sure. First, I'll say we're not going to give up on that. I mean, we're going to continue to solicit. We do learn something when we send surveys out. The most responses we've gotten back is around 3,000. I'm just careful not to generalize with the sample. I mean, with the return number being that low. But in any case, the last time we tried to take a more granular approach in asking principals and teachers to push the survey through the classroom mechanism. So Class Dojo at the elementary level and Jupiter at the secondary level. I mean, it did yield a slightly larger response, but still not quite what we were looking for. We also use the Blackboard Connect system. It has a text message feature. We use that. An individual, a family member will receive a text and just got to click the link and it brings you right to the survey. We're also mindful, this is a tough context. I to be perfectly honest with you, my district has sent surveys and honestly, at the end of the day, I'm tired. That's not going to be the thing that I'm going to prioritize. I'm going to prioritize spending time with my children and checking in with family and getting rest. And so I am mindful of that as well. I mean, this is a tough time. In any case, the survey that we're preparing to send out it's a little bit longer than the ones we've sent out, but it's about 14 questions, the first couple of which are really demographics questions, just to help us understand who's saying what in terms of grade level and things of that nature. But it seeks to understand a little bit more about what people are worried about as it relates to food security and housing stability. It asks two questions about when it's at its best, how much time is a student spending on remote learning activities, and when it's at its worst, how much time is a student spending? And then there's one question at the end that asks, essentially, what are people's priorities as it relates to the fall? And this is actually going to be really helpful for us. Everyone's first priority is the health and well-being of our students. But what are the second and third priorities? Is it, the ability to, have a school scenario that allows a person to go back to work? Is it increased academic support or interventions? Is it more supports for mental health or social emotional support? So, this is all of the surveys are important, but this one is really going to inform our thinking about, what people are thinking about as it relates to next year. And so one additional strategy, the window for the survey is usually pretty short. Maybe we'll make this one a little bit longer. It's a longer survey. And we're just going to go all out on trying to get folks to, spend a few minutes clicking. And that's the other thing. There's no opportunity in these surveys, and I say opportunity because I mean it, but for people to give narrative feedback, only because we just don't have the bandwidth to analyze, thousands of, narrative responses. So really it's a function of reading the questions and clicking. And so we don't want to make it burdensome on families, but it is important. And we're going to try again in short order.
Okay. Member Castellanos?
So I'm going to ask you earlier. So is the DOE, so I know this is kind of going back, I don't want to go backwards, but athletics, who's going to be, are they going to release parameters around when athletics is going to start? Is going to be fall sports going to be, what's that parameter look like? 'Cause I actually got a lot of questions in terms of what that looks like for football and obviously the other fall sports.
Sure.
Like what's DOE looking at parameters?
So first let me say that I am a deep believer in what being a student athlete can do for an individual student. My daughter will be a senior next year. She's on the varsity volleyball team. And so this is a very important and often discussed topic in my own home. This is one of those wait and see scenarios. The MIA is following the state's guidance on, what's safe. The Department of Public Health guidance on what's safe. And so, in the governor's May 18th shift, there was some verbiage around some youth sports beginning, and I've not read the fine print on that, but that gave me some hope. But I really, fall sports tend to start the third week in August, I believe. I don't think we're going to be finding out about that until July at the earliest. But right now, there's been nothing on it.
Deputy Superintendent Ruggiero.
I just wanted to share, I had a meeting with Mike Geary and the 3 ADs just yesterday, and we actually were talking about this. And as Dr. Tutwiler said, we don't know at this point. MIAA has not really put out anything yet, and it's really too soon for them to make those decisions. But I'm a proactive thinker, so I asked them to work together as a team to come up with different possible scenarios. What might it look like if everything is remote and there's no face-to-face? What could sports look like? Could there be a remote aspect to trainings? Like gyms have been closed now for 2-3 months now, and they're doing, Zoom video workouts. So could that be something they could do? So that's one thing, if it's all remote. What could it look like if it's blended? That right now you can have small groups up to 10 people. Could they do some remote and some face-to-face with small groups of players doing some strength work or some skill work around their sport? And then what would it look like if we are able to go back, and what would the protocols and the safety pieces be? So I'm asking them to really start thinking about that now and write it up, and let's talk it through so that when a decision is made at the state level or the district level or the city level, we're ready to go.
Thank you, Deb. That's actually really great to hear that you guys are being proactive and that the athletic directors are really hopping on board that, because I think student athletes are, that's their drive. Some kids, that's what they get up to class, they go do their work, and that's part of their routine. Going back to the social emotional piece, some of those kids going into senior, junior year, they take this athletic serious, and it's good that we are being proactive, and that's I appreciate that. Thank you.
Member Nicholson, you have a question?
Yeah, I just had a really quick response to Dr. Tutwiler's answer on the survey. I just wanted to thank him for that. Very helpful. And then just obviously on the narrative point, for people that do have narrative feedback, obviously we encourage them to reach out to their teachers, their principals, the administration, you, Dr. Tutwiler, any one of us on the school committee. We understand your point there, but just wanted to add that people should feel free to give us that narrative feedback through other means.
If I may, Mayor, quickly, I concur fully, and folks have been really helpful in reaching directly out, some to me, but certainly to principals. I encourage them to continue. And for those who haven't, if they have a thought or a concern, they should share.
Member Satterwhite.
It sounds as though we're done with the question, so I was just going to do the request for executive session. Is that fine?
I'm going to motion to
request for executive session to discuss strategies with respect to collective bargaining relative to local 1037 paraprofessional contract.
Second.
requires a roll call.
Mr. Cassianos,
Yes.
Ms. Capola? Ms. Capola? Okay. Mr. Ford?
Yes.
Ms. Gately?
Yes.
Mr. Nicholson?
Yes.
Satterwhite?
Yes.
And Mayor McGee?
Yes. Did you get Member Capola, or she was saying yes? Did you get?
Did it, I
Good.
saw her.
Okay, we will now adjourn to executive session. We will sign off here and sign in on the executive session.
Yeah, just to remember, people going into the executive session, the secretary sent out the invite information. It's the same one we used last time.
Okay. Great, thank you.
So.
So before I sign, I should like wait till we vote on it.
Correct.
I'm getting this, Michael. You're not even sitting next to me.
I'll call you back. Okay.
Jeez.
Is Donna on the phone again?
I haven't heard it yet.
Donna, are you here?
John Myhouse?
John Myhouse here.
Okay. Kevin McHugh?
Yeah.
Okay. And is Patrick here? I'm wondering who caller one is.
Caller one.
Wasn't it Kevin and John? There were two callers.
Kevin is Kevin McHugh.
Yeah, but I think he's joining by phone for his audio.
Oh.
Yeah, I'm on phone for audio. Gabby?
Do you have two?
John is here.
Okay. Perfect.
I'm right here.
That's Harry.
What?
John
You
Myhouse,
got
I'm
color
here.
too.
Harry back.
Are we all in?
Yeah, we're all here. Good.
Here you are, Donna. Looking good.
All right. So,
Can I make a motion?
okay, motion?
Motion to go
Member Satterwhite?
into back in regular session.
All right, let me start
Motion's been
recording.
made.
Oh, sorry.
Roll call.
This conference will now be recorded.
Okay,
Motion to go into regular session.
there's been a
Second.
motion, there's a second, Member Gately. Roll call required.
Ms. Castellanos,
Yes.
Ms. Paula,
Yes.
Mr. Ford,
Yes.
Ms. Gately,
Yes.
Mr. Nicholson,
Yes.
Mr. Satterwhite,
Yes.
Mayor McGee.
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion.
Okay, motion, Member Satterwhite?
I'd like to make a motion to ratify the votes taken in executive session relative to the local 1037 paraprofessional contract, where we approved that contract. And
Second.
we also agreed to sign it to the dot loop that I sent to all of your email addresses.
Second.
The second, it requires a roll call.
Ms. Castellanos,
Yes.
Ms. Capola,
All right. Yes.
Mr. Ford,
Yes.
Ms. Gately,
Yes.
Mr. Nicholson,
Yes.
and Mr. Satterwhite,
Yes.
Mayor McGee.
Yes.
Motion passed.
Okay, so far I have Brian and John.
Okay.
Yours has already been checked.
Well, he doesn't have it.
I have Donna's now too, thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
I have Barrett.
Just one signing, right? One signing, Michael?
That's correct, Donna.
Michael, did you send, I just texted, did you send it to the right email?
I did. I can
Michael,
resend
did
it
you
to
get
you.
mine?
I did. I got your text, Tom, and Lorraine. I got yours. Yes. Let me just. Tom, it said that you looked at it at 7:33, so it has to be in your email. You just
Oh,
need
is
to
it,
sign it.
okay, I do have it, yep. All right, I've got it,
Perfect.
let me see. Okay, sorry. I will send that off.
I want to say I'm so proud. I can't wait for. We definitely beat last record.
Less drama.
Yes.
I appreciate the praise, Michael. I saw that right away. I was like, okay, gotta do what he told me to do.
I just want to say thank you, and hopefully we'll be able to get a tentative agreement for the therapist and get back to you for the next school committee meeting. Thank you.
Okay, so all set on my end. Thank you, guys. I'll get this over to whoever.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion made to adjourn. Is there a second?
Second.
And before we do that, I know, I just want to say, I know Dr. Tutwiler didn't get, but I think you pretty much gave all of your information, Dr. Tutwiler. Do you feel the need?
That is correct.
Okay, great.
That is correct, man.
Motion to adjourn. There's a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Have a great night. Thank you, everyone.
Have a
Thank
great
you.
weekend, everyone.
Thank you. See you guys.
You as well.
Aye.
It's gonna be beautiful weather.
Enjoy.
Yeah.
This conference
Yep.
is